welcome back to another episode of Money Making Mamas podcast. I'm Nancy Wallace Lobbs, and I'm joined by
Kelsey Laka.
And we are so glad that you're here today. You know what? I'm going to ask you to just hit that follow, subscribe button right away because we always forget at the end of it because we get so caught up. But thank you for tuning in. We're so excited to be here. This is episode 15.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yay.
Yeah.
So, Kelsey, we
and
went
really quick, I have to say, I'm pretty proud of us for we hit 10 was a milestone, and then now 15, and it's been really busy the past couple weeks.
It has
And
been.
we've still been like getting them out. I know we always, when we started this, we were like, okay, we're gonna have like 3 to 4 episodes prior, but now we're doing it like literally the week of.
Right.
So
And today we said that we were going to have a strategic, what do we call those? A powwow,
yeah,
a strategic sales seminar, I guess, this afternoon about
Mhm.
Money Making Mamas because we've gotten,
like a little get to.
get to like
together.
look at the numbers and all that kind of stuff and check out our Google Analytics that Nancy fixed last month. But let's talk about what we did.
Yeah.
Where were we? So anyway, we had a really good Easter, and the
Yes.
kids. It was storming in the morning, but then it was nice. They got to the sun came out, it warmed up, and they got to do a really cool Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I have a funny story about that. So
okay, let's tell this funny
'cause
story.
did you see this happen? So okay, so we all of us, so mom, Brian, my husband, and then my 2 babies, 3 and 2 years old, 3-year-old boy and 2-year-old girl, if no one's familiar yet or your first time listening, but um we went to like a brunch, and then they had like an Easter egg hunt afterwards, right? And so you kind of were like videoing the kids, and I was with Bear and Zach was with Toby, and Toby did really good. Like, she was picking up the eggs, like, he'd show. And I told Bear at the very beginning, because he didn't, this was his first time really like
Yes.
understanding what to do, because I told him, I was like, hey, you're gonna run and you're gonna get as many eggs as you want. So he's like going or whatever, and he's getting a ton, and he fills his whole thing up. Did you see what he did?
Yeah, he dumped them all out,
Yeah, he
right?
literally like just like threw his bucket all around like a little crazy person. I was like, "Oh my God, Bear, what are you doing?" Which, like, okay, it's his eggs, but I was like, "Bro."
Yeah.
So,
Well, and let's just clarify, they were plastic eggs,
yeah.
and they either had candy or tattoos in
Yeah,
them.
and
So
of
they,
course it was the candy that like
mm-hmm.
threw, and then, well, and I didn't tell you this, but I went through like all of them, and there was probably like a good 50 between the both of them, and like it was all temporary tattoos, little, like, I'm talking the size half of my pinky, little gadgets like a skateboard or car or whatever, and then
Choking hazards.
choking hazards, and then like the knockoff like Tootsie Rolls.
Oh,
Yeah, and so
oh, that's not good.
I know, and so I like ended up I mean, we have a bunch of temporary tattoos, but everything else I was like, okay, this is,
Yeah,
but
because I
they hadn't
noticed that.
asked.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? So then that morning, I don't know if I like if we like really talked about this, but that morning it was just like busy, hectic. It wasn't really like wake up and go. Like, it wasn't wake up and like chill and then go. It was wake up and go. And so we got home from the Easter hunt, and we still hadn't done our eggs at home. And so Bear and Toby, like, now that they kind of understood, so they started seeing eggs everywhere. But we did goldfish and bunnies, and that got them so much more excited.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
eat it right then.
Yeah, right then. I like that. So,
Yeah.
well, we also did something fun right before
Yeah.
Easter. So why don't you talk about our little getaway we did?
Yeah, so I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but my kids' birthdays are 2 months apart. And so we did a birthday party for Bear, 3-year-old. We talked about that a couple episodes back. And then my husband and I, we were like planning Toby's second birthday, and we were like, man, it's just like we just had a party. Like, there's, and they've got so many toys.
And you're inviting the same people.
We're inviting the same people, and like, and it was the Saturday before Easter. And so we are like, okay, is this really the route we want to go? So we are like, well, what if we went to Galveston? She absolutely loves anything ocean, loves Finding Dory, Finding Nemo, turtles, whales, everything ocean. So I was like, well, what if we just went to like the beach, for like a couple of days, get away, go to the aquarium there. And then obviously invite you guys, because you've been a big part of their, of Toby's life, and I mean Toby and Bear's life.
And we just like going on vacation too.
Right, exactly. So anyway, so we went to Galveston. It was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. And her day was really busy, but like it was a good busy. Like, she just loved it.
Oh, and she just loved playing in the sand and the water. She
Yeah.
wasn't really too cool about the water, but it was a little cold.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, like she just would scream if you picked her up
Yeah.
to like when it was time to go. She was not having
Well,
it.
and like she's very like it's just so funny. So we did the aquarium, which if you haven't been to Galveston, definitely go down to Galveston to do the aquarium. It was really cool. So we did that, and then we went back to Airbnb, chilled for a little bit, and then we went to the beach. Oh, and we did family pictures that morning
Oh
too.
yeah, that was a lot of fun
That
on
was
the
actually a
beach.
lot of fun.
Yeah, let's just do a shout out
Yeah.
to Treva, right? Her name was Treva.
Yeah.
And anyway, she was a fabulous because
Hmm.
I'm not very photographic. So I was like, oh, but she made me feel like,
Yeah.
oh, these are going to turn out good.
Yeah,
Have you
and
gotten them yet? Have
not
you?
yet.
Okay.
But also too, like photographing toddlers is a whole ordeal. And like
Mm.
if you've been through that, you know it's a whole ordeal. And she just did so good. And like, yeah, I'm really excited to see those. So that was really fun to do that the morning of. And then we did the aquarium and then the beach. And Toby was just like could not. She's like our little beach bum. She just
She
loved it. She
loved
was locked
it.
in.
She
I
loved it.
think it
So
took all of us by surprise. Like she
mhm.
just was.
She just was, eating the sand, digging in the sand, just loving the
Yeah,
sand.
and the
Yeah.
bear did too. Yeah, so it was a really good time. It was a lot of fun. So we did, yeah, it was a good trip.
It was.
So
It
I'm
was really
happy to be
fun.
back. But we were talking about our experiences, and for me, like the things that we noticed about Galveston, we hadn't been there for so many years, and like the things that were different. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't remember this being here. I don't remember this being here. And then what were your thoughts?
Oh my gosh. So I was all about the real estate. Well, first off, I want to say the Airbnb we stayed at was, oh,
Yeah.
it was so nice. Like I actually took pictures of things that they did. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I want to incorporate that into my Airbnb because it was really nice. So
Mhm.
I just got new pots and pans and there was just some little tiny
That
details.
were amazing.
They were
Well, and
amazing.
I'm just gonna say really quick, if you are, so this is twice now. So we've been to Tennessee where we were in the mountains, and then we went to, a beach or whatever. And both of the Airbnbs, like if you're gonna have an Airbnb in a location where you're like going doing stuff, or maybe it requires like diggy toys or a wagon, like provide that stuff because our Airbnb provided, when we went to Tennessee for hiking, they provided the like mountain backpack.
Hmm.
And then like this one in Galveston provided diggy toys for the kids and an umbrella and like chairs. And it was amazing to have that stuff
Yeah.
because we didn't.
Yeah.
We're
And
not
we
beach
didn't have to
people.
haul it. Yeah, we didn't have to haul it all there.
Yeah.
So, and it was nice. Just they just had some very nice little touches.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to share this because we both said, "Oh my gosh, their shampoo and body
Oh my God,
conditioner
it smelled so
smells like." So
good.
we actually asked them
Yeah.
what it was, and it's Tresemme
Yeah.
that they get
Yeah.
at Costco.
Yeah.
Who knew? But anyway, I ordered some,
Yeah.
so
No, they
better
were
than
so
Suave.
nice. Yeah.
And so, yeah, but the one thing I noticed was how many houses were for sale
Yeah.
in Galveston. Because a few years ago, we came like this, a
And
nanosecond
we talked
close.
about it in a couple episodes when we talked about
Yeah,
short-term rentals.
yeah. And so we were just, oh my gosh, I mean, I was literally like, oh my gosh, there's a house for sale. Oh my God. And probably like every block that we were driving
Hmm.
around, there were 2 to 3 houses for
Yeah.
sale. So I actually did a little digging to find out why that was. And so a lot of people bought houses during COVID
Yeah.
and tried to turn them into short-term rental. Now it's glutted, but insurance and property taxes
Hmm.
were two of the biggest things. So people are upside down. We saw one house that was, it had been listed, I think. Remember, I think it was like five hundred thousand
Hmm.
dollars. They reduced it to three.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't really want to buy a house down there because of the insurance and all of that. But there were some deals to be had,
Yeah.
definitely. So that's something. But you're just gonna have to weather the storm, so to speak,
Right.
because it is pretty glutted with
Hmm.
short-term rentals. But if everybody starts selling, so that's one thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I noticed. It was just the market was so many. I don't.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen a market where you have for sale signs everywhere. It was
Yeah.
either for sale or for lease.
Yeah.
Tons,
And
tons of them. There was a
there's a
lot.
lot.
But yeah, but well, so what do you think we should talk about today, Kelsey?
So, I was thinking about this the other day when we were kind of brainstorming, and after the fact, I was like, well, one of the most common questions I get outside of like, what do you have, how much money do you have to bring to the table is what was it specifically, what was my first deal? Like for us, because if you know our story, just, I was working corporate job, my kids were in daycare, and like I just didn't have that time with them. And so, um, I went to you and I said, hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job, but I can't with this economy, I can't afford like that and, keep them home with me. And so that's when we talked about investing in real estate. And so, um, in that moment, I had my 401k, which we talked about this, a couple episodes back. If you haven't listened to our self-directed IRA, this is kind of how we funded one of my deal, like my very first deal. We used my 401k, turned it into self-directed IRA and used that. But we never really talked about what type of deal. And then we were talking about this more of like, well, your first wholesale deal and my first wholesale deal had a lot in common.
Mhm.
Even though they're substantially, years apart. So I thought that would be kind of a cool topic to
Yeah,
talk about because that's what I get asked a lot of what kind of deal did I start off
and
as?
interestingly enough, one of my clients, we just did this about wholesaling because, she just literally said, I don't have any money.
Yeah.
How can I make money? And I was like, you know what? Let's drop back
Yeah.
because it's a strategy I've talked about. Um, I usually buy, but sometimes I do wholesale. So I
Yeah.
was like, well, let's just explore that. So I think that's a good topic. So
So why don't you just jump in and explain what
all right. Well,
wholesaling
let's
is?
talk about what wholesaling is. Okay. So let me preface I am a real estate broker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You don't, now, some states are changing it that you have to maybe get your license to wholesale. Right now in Texas, you don't. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of, so the first thing I'm going to say about it is be transparent. So wholesaling is basically you have no intention of buying the property,
Yeah.
you're just getting it under contract and you are selling it. So the idea is you find a property, get it under
Mm-hmm.
contract with the seller,
Right.
and then you actually have a list of buyers that you're going to market the property to. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not using a real estate agent, it's not going on the MLS. I mean, sometimes it does go on the MLS, but generally what happens is to be really a successful wholesaler, you got to have a list of buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, so basically, let's just take the example of a house of, let's say the ARV or after repair value, like the house is all fixed up, it's beautiful. If it were to go on the open market, let's just say it would retail for $300,000. But let's say you have a seller that is distressed, meaning, the house needs lots of repairs and they have no
Mm-hmm.
money. I work a lot of pre-probate. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
they just want to sell fast. So they're looking
Right.
for a cash deal or whatever. The idea is that in wholesaling, you're getting the house under contract and you're going to not buy it, but you're going to sell it to they call it an end buyer,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's say that, you have a house, Kelsey. And so I say, okay, Nancy is buying the house from
Yeah.
Kelsey. And in the contract, I put and or assigns.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is like I'm gonna assign the contract, which in Texas our contracts are very assignable, or you
Mm-hmm.
can use an amendment to change the name of the buyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to give myself an option period with the seller, and I'm going to tell the seller, hey, you know what? I'm not sure. I don't have that conversation with the seller right away. I kind of like
Yeah.
because maybe I am going to buy the house, right?
Yeah.
But basically, I'm going to let them know that I'm going to be marketing the house to some other investors, buyers, or whatnot. So the tricky part is to get the house at such a discount that you can then resell it, if you will,
Yeah.
for a profit.
Mm.
And that profit varies. Like some wholesalers, I would say $5,000 is the average that they make. So let's just take that $300,000 house. Let's say I get it under contract for $180,000.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my price I said I was going to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, I have my buyers list. I market to them. And so I'll mark it up to where I'll say the price is 190
Mm-hmm.
or 185
Yeah.
or 200,000. I mean, everything in real estate is negotiable.
Right.
So the wholesale fee, the fee I'm earning, is the difference between the amount I put the house under contract with the seller and what I end up selling it for to an end buyer.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes the end buyer, this is a question I get asked all the time. Does the buyer know what you're getting it from the end buyer? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they do, sometimes they don't,
Yeah.
and a true investor doesn't really care as long as when they're buying it, it's a deal.
Yeah.
Now, let's say that same house, you got it for 180 and you're trying to sell it for 290. I just said the after repair value was 300,000, and any investor who knows how to do their due diligence isn't going to pay you
Right.
almost $100,000 because first of all, it's not a deal at 290.
Right.
So the hard part about wholesaling is to get the house under contract low enough that you can still make a profit on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what wholesaling is.
Yeah, that was good. And obviously, if there's any questions after the fact, please reach out to us because
Yeah.
I know it's a lot. But that's just like touching the surface. So when you're looking for a wholesale property, is it typically a distressed home?
Yes, it usually is because otherwise the seller could just put it on the open market and get
Right.
retail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
So
so people ask me, how do you find those?
yeah, so like,
Is that where
well,
we're going? That's where
yeah.
we're going.
So how, like, typically what neighborhoods, or like how do you know what neighborhoods to look
Okay,
into?
so that's a really good question. So, it's really hard to do wholesaling in the Dallas Fort Worth area because it's just a crazy, insane market, right?
Right.
It's very high. But here's what I tell people that are new to wholesaling: pick two zip codes, just two that you want to, invest in. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
We picked two and then start learning. Like I say, every other day, whatever, look at the sales price. Like, what are houses selling for? So in particular zip codes, there's usually like 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. It's not normally mixed use, but you're looking for
Right.
single family homes, a
Mm-hmm.
3 bedroom, a 2 bedroom, and get familiar with what they're selling for.
Mm.
And look at it daily or weekly. As a realtor, I can look that up. So in the deals that I found and that I found for you, I knew when we got the price that we did, I knew right off the bat it was a good deal because I was familiar with what the sales prices are. So, for
Right.
example, in that one we were just talking about, and even when we were looking in Galveston. So, again, after repair value, that's going to be the most somebody could get for all fixed up house,
Right.
right? And so let's just say it's $300,000 for a 3 bedroom, two bath, 1,500 square foot,
Mm-hmm.
and the seller's willing to sell it for $100,000. Well, you don't need to run numbers.
Yeah.
You know that that's a deal,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know that unless you started really, knowing the market. So
Yeah.
that's what it's called, know the market. Now, what we do for our clients is we run heat maps. So I
Mm-hmm.
can literally go in on the program we have, and I can run a heat map, and I know I can, like, within seconds, I can find what the average sales price is in any given zip code in the United States.
Mm.
So that's how we,
Right. You're
look
right.
for properties where to market to.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to try and wholesale $1 million homes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not.
So obviously, using, like, we help people find the deals and like all that stuff. But what about buyers? Let's talk about that. Like, so
Okay.
we're a first time, we have a mom that's a first time investor. So like, let's walk them through of how.
Yeah, let's just and this is another thing that we teach people how to do, how to build a buyer's list
Hmm.
for free.
Especially, being like a mom, or, someone that's just getting started into real estate investing. Like, this is great because I don't have a buyer's list. So
Yeah.
go on.
Okay, so I just showed somebody how to do this. So there's super easy ways that doesn't cost anything, just a little bit of time. You can it's called data scraping.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain way you have to do it because if you know what TOS means, terms of service, so you can't
Mm-hmm.
go in Facebook and
Yep.
Instagram and all that. There's a certain way you have to do it. But there's a search query that we teach that you can go into Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn,
Yep.
and you can search for buyers,
Yep. Yeah.
investors,
Mm-hmm.
and you can build your list
Mm-hmm.
of those. And then there's other ways you can do it, like you can start asking people. But the fastest way that doesn't cost anything to get a buyer's list together, I mean, the client I'm working with now, she's got, that's her task because we're working on her wholesaling because
Yep.
she doesn't have any cash. And I said, okay, here's what you need to do. Get her action items are two zip codes. We've already picked the zip codes. I told her how she can find the
Mm-hmm.
sales price, average sales price of the houses in that zip code. And then I showed her how to start building her list. And so we meet in 10 days, and I told her she had to have a minimum of 100 buyers.
There you go.
I mean, she'll do that in an afternoon, not
Yeah.
even an afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. And so all of these things that we talk about, the strategies, really what it talks about is like you have to have a little bit of discipline. Okay, let's say you have no money.
Right.
Okay, but then you got to bring discipline
Yeah.
and consistency to the
Yep.
table,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Because we can teach you the strategies.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do it for you.
Yes.
I mean, we can if you
Exactly.
want to pay us for it, right? But the idea is that, these things that we talk about, they don't take a lot of time, but they
No.
do take the discipline for
Yeah.
you to sit down you were talking about, we wanted to do, what can you do during nap times?
Yep.
This is exactly what you can
Yep.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So don't put on that
Or
show.
even, well, no, I was gonna say even, oh, don't put on the show for yourself, but even, I mean, if you have like a reality show in the background, put that on like even at 8 o'clock at night when you have some time to yourself. But I was gonna say, even if your kids like me don't nap, And I definitely don't like quiet time is a 1 out of 10 days thing for me. But you know, I do let them watch a movie in the morning and in the afternoon, and yeah, a little bit here and there. But anyways, I do that as well. Like I might not get my 100 in that moment, but that's another time that you have available to yourself.
Exactly. And then
It
there's
doesn't
ways
take
that we
long.
show people how to set it up for an automatic email.
Yeah.
So it all happens while you're sleeping. So, but you do have to be disciplined to and consistently do some of the small work. And when I say small, I'm talking about like time wise, 15 to 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 4 or 5 times a week. We're not even talking about a lot, right?
Right.
So, but then let's talk about
Well, I
like
was gonna say, let's talk about sellers.
sellers. Okay, so
Yeah.
sellers, you can't do that. I
Yeah.
mean, you could, but it's not going to work.
Right.
So sellers, you do have to have some way to find motivated sellers. So there's lots and lots of list companies that you can, spend a lot of money on
Mhm.
lists. We've talked about driving for dollars.
Yeah.
I like pre-probate leads. I think
Well,
they're the easiest.
explain what driving for dollars means real
Okay, so
quick.
driving for dollars. So let's say you're going out and about and you've picked your zip code that you're
Mhm.
going to market in. Now, sometimes your zip code might not be close to your house, so kind of keep that into consideration. But what you can do is you're literally in your car. I mean, put the kids in the back seat, take your iPhone, and then drive through neighborhoods. And what you're looking for are distressed properties. And I'm talking about overgrown weeds, not the kind that you say, okay, that person just didn't mow their lawn. But I mean, like the bushes haven't been trimmed. Some of my telltale things are the broken blinds in the window, the peeling paint,
Foil
um,
over the window.
foil over the windows, and then don't forget to drive through the alleys
Yep.
and
Mhm.
kind of peek through the I'm not saying get out of your car. I'm saying like kind of peek through the fences and look for hoarder homes.
Yeah.
Cuz you'd be surprised. People run
Mhm.
out of room inside and so they start hoarding in the backyard.
Also, another one too, depending on how often it's updated, but Google Maps and the satellite, because the neighborhood that we used to live in, you know, we had some of our neighbor. I mean, I'm not saying we were like stalking our neighbors, but a couple streets down, they were definitely distressed homes, and so we were able to go in satellite view, and even though we couldn't see, like, we could see the back of their houses, but what's in that yard?
Yes. So
Um.
that's a great way to do it. And then that doesn't cost anything, a little bit of
Mhm.
time. And then once you've identified, and the reason I said take your phone and be careful about this because people will stare at you. And especially if you got kids in the car, you want to
Yeah.
stop. But
Be.
you can take a picture of the front of the house. And what you're really trying to do is get the address.
Yeah.
Make a. And so what I do is I actually print out a Google map
Yep.
of an area that I'm going through. And I'll take a Saturday sometimes. I mean, I don't have any kids anymore, but I'll take my
But
Google.
really quick, also
Yeah.
too, I remember as a kid, like, yeah, sometimes I went with you, but sometimes I didn't. But I remember you and Brian would make a thing out of it. You know, like
Mm-mm.
even if you're able to like, just have get your husband involved and like Saturday morning if you're able, if you have a village around you that can watch the kids, or if not, all get in the car and go get a Starbucks or something like that and make it a, morning thing of being
Yeah, and
together.
you only have to do
Because I
like a
remember you doing it with Brian, but really quick, I wanted to bring
mhm.
up too, because it is tax season. So let's talk about that advantage of driving for dollars. And correct me if I'm wrong, but can't you, um, use that as tax?
Oh, you certainly
Yeah.
can.
So talk about that piece too, just from
Okay,
tax
so,
season, real
and
quick.
you have to have the documents, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the way I documented that
Yeah.
for driving for dollars is I printed out the Google Maps of the area,
Mm-hmm.
and then that helped me keep track of the houses or whatnot. And at that time, what I would do, I'm sure there's more
Yeah.
digitized ways to do this. This is how I did it because I kept it all in a folder for my CPA if I needed it. Um, is I wrote the date
Yep. And the mileage.
and the starting mileage and the ending mileage,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then driving for dollars, D4D. And then I just threw at the end of the day, I just threw it in there. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when I got the addresses, I came home and I put it all in an Excel spreadsheet. Then I would go to the county records and
Yeah.
look up who owned the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, some people are brave and they'll go knock on the door. And I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. I
Yeah.
think it's a little, and especially if you're a mom, don't do that. I don't like it. But I would write them a note
Mm-hmm.
and like, hey, and I'm not going to say, hey, I was driving in your neighborhood
Right.
stalking.
Yeah.
I'll just say it's very simple. Let's say the homeowner's name is Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Dear Smith family, I'm interested in the house at 123 Main Street. If you're interested in selling, please call me.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yep.
And then you just kind of keep track of it. If you have a CRM, some
Mhm.
kind of, or you can do all of this in an Excel spreadsheet. And I'll tell you, when I first started, I did it in a notebook.
Yeah.
I had a notebook that was my
Yeah.
Driving for Dollars notebook because, maybe Mr. Smith doesn't get back to me and I'm going to send him another one. And it takes about 4 to 7 times to contact somebody. That's just a sales statistic. I've had people never contact me, and I've had people contact me on my first try.
Yeah.
So, you want to keep it and then you want to, keep up with it. So,
Mhm. Yeah, so driving for dollars, that's how you're gonna find your sellers. Pick, two zip codes. Start just get those kiddos in the back, get out of the house. It's
yeah,
about to be hot.
it
So,
is. Yeah.
if they
Well, and the other thing I want to say is if you do have money and you want to buy lists, you
oh,
can market because I
yeah.
buy non-owner occupied lists, pre-probate lists. There's foreclosures list, there's divorce, there's all kinds of lists.
Well, and if you do, if you are, so there's driving for dollars where you could go find your own. I mean, there's multiple ways you could do this to go find sellers, but ultimately, driving for dollars is one. Another way that you could is buy a list, which if you are interested in that, reach out to Nancy because she does have,
Coupon
just
codes.
well, well, I that, but also too, I was gonna say you have different ones that you've used, and depending on what, because we have the probate, like you said, we have the foreclosure, so there's multiple things. So if you have questions about that, if you're interested in lists, like definitely reach out. But
I
so I
gotta
think
say
we,
one more thing
oh
about
yeah, yeah,
referrals.
yeah,
Because I think we've said this
oh
before. Like,
yeah,
tell everybody that
yes,
that you're, looking to buy an investment property.
and you're
Uh,
wholesaling specifically, and
Yeah, or you don't even have to say that. You just say you're looking for
mm,
properties because, sometimes you think you're going to wholesale and then you find out, oh my gosh, I could flip it
yeah, that's
or I
true,
could hold
yeah,
it or it's going to make a great Airbnb.
yeah,
So wholesaling is just one strategy, and that's why
right.
we're kind of talking about it today.
Okay, so I think we should like break it back down.
Okay, let's break it
And
down.
I think that we should, because again, we're treating this as, because I had no idea what wholesaling was. I had no idea until, and even to this day, like, I've only done that one beginning, and it's a whole, like, investing is a mega thing, and like
It's like a
wholesale.
brick.
No, I
Yeah.
know, but like then the wholesaling, there's a lot to it. There's a
Remember we
lot to it.
talked
You
about
know it
Tinker
is.
Toys last time?
Yeah.
It's like the Tinker Toy. You got the one stick with the wheel, and then you do the goo.
Okay, in my mind, it's like one of those like Rubik's cubes. Like
Yeah,
there's just
okay.
like a lot to it. But again, I haven't been doing this, that long. So okay, so we talked about, how you might find your wholesale deal and how you might find your sellers, and then we also talked about how you would find your buyers. But go back, like contract, like could anyone just off the street do this? You mentioned you have your broker's license. So like say I didn't know you. What should I do? If I'm
Okay, so you can actually use Texas, we're in Texas. So you can use the Texas forms. You
mhm,
can just download them. You don't have to be a realtor to use them. Anybody can use them. And there are contracts. I mean, you can Google, contracts.
mhm.
You can hire an attorney to draw up contracts.
And
So
would you get contracts involved when you find your deal?
when you talk to the seller and you come to a negotiation of a price, because remember, it's not a deal
Mhm.
until it's written
That's
down,
true.
And I used to be, and still am a big fan of Judge Judy, and she would always say the four corners, right,
Mhm.
of what's in the contract. So, and a contract can be I mean, I've seen 3-page contracts. I'm a
Mhm.
realtor. I think the last time I counted the pages, I want to say there's 14, 13, 14, don't quote me on that, contract pages, because there's been some changes to the contract.
Mhm.
But I have seen contracts for properties that are only 3 pages.
Mm.
Now, being a broker, I'm not going to enter into that, so I'm going to like put it on my contract, and
Right.
that's just because I know now.
Mhm.
But if you're not familiar with contracts, and I'm not here to give legal advice because I'm a broker, realtor, not an
Yeah.
attorney.
Yeah.
Um, and if you ever are in doubt, and normally you're the person who's writing the contract, right?
Mhm.
So what you can do is you can, like, as you're speaking to the seller, you can make notes like, okay,
Mhm.
we agreed I'm going to pay you 180. You're going to move out on such and such a date. You're going to give me 30 days to market the property. I'm going to give you Usually there's some little compensation that you're going to give to the seller, like maybe $100 to have that option period.
Right.
The option period is the time that you enter into the contract, the agreement,
Mm-hmm.
till the time that you say you're going to sell it or you're going to
Right.
terminate,
Mm-hmm.
in the contract. So
Yeah.
you want to have the price and then the names of the people. One of the things, I don't want to get too bogged down in all of this because you got to find the house,
Right.
but you got to know who, the person that you're talking to, make sure they actually own the house.
Right.
That's why I like to go to the tax records.
Yeah.
Because,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm talking to Mr. Smith, but really, this person over here, let's call him Leo, owns the house, not Mr. Smith.
Right.
Leo owns the house. So you do have to do a little due diligence when you're entering into that.
Really quick, let's talk about Leah. Like how it like in my mind, I would have been like, okay, maybe you accidentally are talking to the daughter and she's saying, she's talking for it, but you really the house is under the dad or something like that. So
Right.
maybe make sure just
Yeah, because when
Leo
you're,
and Mr. Smith, like that's really confusing.
yeah,
But
because when, yeah, you're right. I should have said, like, I couldn't
you
think of
should
a
have put the actual like relationship.
Mr. Lee.
No, like
Leo
not
Lee.
even that, but like what would be the relationship of Leo?
Exactly. Well, they could be the renters and trying to sell it. I mean, there's scams out there, right?
Right.
That's why I go to
Okay,
the,
so that's what I would have said, like the renters
okay.
and the owner.
Yeah. Because sometimes if you,
Yes.
that's why I like to buy lists because then I know, like when you're doing driving for
Yeah.
dollars, you can go to the tax records, like in
Yeah.
Texas, and it'll say, "Does Mr. Smith live in the house?" Like
Yeah.
you can say, "Yes, he's an occupant," or you can
Yeah.
tell by. But sometimes he doesn't live there,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe the daughter lives there, or maybe he's renting it, or maybe it's an Airbnb.
Right.
So you send a card to that house, right? And then they call you,
Mm-hmm.
and this has happened. Like it's the
Yeah.
scam where people give money and then they find out they made the contract with the wrong person.
Right, right, right. Um, so okay. When I said like let's break it down. So
Okay.
maybe let's talk about like, okay, I'm a first time investor. I don't know what route I'm gonna go through, but what would happen? Like I don't feel confident that I have negotiating skills to get down. So like what would you recommend?
So there's a couple things. So we offer scripts that you
Mm-hmm.
can use to talk to a seller. You can always partner with somebody that has a little bit more experience,
Mm-hmm.
like us.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but there's different ways to, I mean, there's books, there's YouTube videos. If you have a fear of talking to people, yeah, you're probably not a very good
Right.
negotiator. But again, that's one of those things that you have to remember. If you want to do this, if you want to benefit from the
Right.
reward of being an investor, if you feel uncomfortable at any of the points, then you should get somebody you can partner with
Yes.
that you trust, that
Yeah.
can help you. Like
Yes.
you didn't know what you were doing. So it
Right.
was really me that negotiated the deal with
Yes.
the seller, but you were sitting right there and the
Yes.
seller was taken by you.
Yes.
And mother daughter stuff works.
Yes.
Family
It does.
stuff works with distressed people because they saw that you were out there hustling. We were able to give your personal story about
Yep.
your two kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have to be relatable because you think
Yes.
about this people that are in distress, they don't need somebody coming at them hard.
Mm-mm.
They don't need somebody. I mean, they already have bill collectors generally after them. It's a very negative, depressing. I mean, just think about you have to move, you're losing your house, you don't have the money to fix it up. And they need a compassion,
Right.
So part of the negotiation is really just people skills.
Yeah, and I think something to look out for, what you said earlier was talking about finding a partner and like just knowing that there are investors out there that, and I think that this is something that I've seen just being like your daughter and being on the sidelines, but also being in our Money Making Mama's business for a year now. And there are investors that just see every deal as a dollar amount. And of course, like that's why we're doing this, right? Like I said, the reason why I want to start investing is so I can quit my job so I can have a second income for my family. Um, but you do have to, I that's why I like investing with moms because it's like they have that natural mom nurturing heart of like I don't see every deal as just a dollar amount. And like I think when you're looking for a partner, you've got to like look out for that because there are people out there that just are like, okay, money, 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 money. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I get it,
Yeah,
but
it
you
is
need
a way to
to,
make money, but also you're solving a problem for
yes,
people. And you don't have to gouge people.
right,
You can have a very ethical real estate investing business. You can be full of caring heart
Yep.
and everything, and actually solving. So a lot of our sellers walk away with something. We
Yes.
put a little, maybe not tons, sometime depending on how much room is in the deal, but we take the burden of them
Mhm.
having to move like right away. Like we've done deals where, the seller actually got to stay in the house for a little bit longer,
Mhm.
right? We've helped home their dogs.
Yep.
We've gotten them legal advice when they needed it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you have to go in as a problem solver if you're
Yes.
going to work those kinds of deals. And you're right. I know a lot of wholesalers that do volumes and they
Mhm.
don't really have time. They just go and they call it the maximum allowable
Yeah.
offer. And they're like, okay, this is it. This is it.
Mhm.
This is it. And sometimes I've walked away with deals with, maybe I could have made more money, but I didn't, because I wanted the seller to have some money to walk away,
Right.
so I don't let greed be my first
Mhm.
um, emotion to come out.
Right, right. So, I think that it would be nice to like again going down the breakdown list of like almost like a checklist.
Okay,
And I think
let's
that
do
would be
it.
really good. But before we jump into that, what other things would you bring up about wholesaling right now that you think that are important for our listeners?
Well, I think being transparent with the seller is the biggest thing, being ethical. And sometimes there is no deal and you just have to walk away. You can't force a deal. It is numbers. It's a numbers game. And sometimes think about, okay, the wholesaling deal, can I make it happen?
Mm-hmm.
Can you get the property low enough? And again, I'm going to go back to, the consistency and discipline to build a buyer's list because you can't be a successful wholesaler if you don't have, you might get the best wholesale deal, but you can't sell it because you don't know who to sell it to.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say this as on the buyer's list, they can always add us
Mm-hmm.
because
Oh, yeah.
we're buying, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can go to people that
Even
are,
though we coach, we still are looking for our own deals
yes,
too and
yes,
doing
yes.
our own deals.
And that's like a referral. And then we pay people, like if you bring a deal to us, we're going to pay you. We're
Yeah.
okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. So what would you say to someone that is kind of like in the beginning, they're building their lead list and having the momentum? Like, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
So I think, getting out your Excel spreadsheet or however you want to track it, and then start. I call them KPIs, key performance indicators. That's just from my corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
but really tracking your progress.
Mm-hmm.
So like how many
And yeah, what is the progress that we're
what is the
tracking?
so first of all, deals, like how many offers have you made?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not going out there and finding sellers and driving for dollars or buying lists or whatever, then, you know, you have to focus on that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what does your buyers list look like? So I would say, if you could get 100 buyers per every couple weeks, that's a good momentum.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could do 50 every 2 weeks, but you'll be better off if you could do 100. And 100 is very doable. I
Yeah.
mean, you could do it in an afternoon.
And
So,
remember, or remind our listeners how they're going to get their buyer's list.
so they're gonna learn how to. They're gonna have to like work with us as far as like learning how to scrape the data.
Yep.
That's
Mm-hmm.
really
Yeah.
if you want to do it for
It's
free.
scraping the data,
The
but
scraping the data, and I want
if
to
you want an
say,
extra hand on that, we'll help you.
yeah, yeah. So there's a little format to do that. And again, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, you could Google it and you could
Mm-hmm.
YouTube it and you could
Yeah.
do all this, but we're just a resource where you don't have to do all that. It's
Right.
all in one place. And we have a lot of freebie stuff too. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to make a shout out for our ultimate collection for real estate for women for real estate. It's got a lot of these things in there that
Well,
we're
and it's got
talking
the
about.
script.
Yeah, we've got seller scripts in there,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't know what to say, we're going to tell you
We've already
exactly, and
written it.
we've already written it. It's there, and I guess that's the thing too. Like, look at it as a resource because, or if there's something that we don't have, why don't you tell us what it is? Like someone did ask me, well, can I send them a heat map? Well, no, I can't do that. That's part of our planning
Right.
process,
Right. Right.
and we don't know like. I mean, I could just whip up one, but I don't know where you want to invest or anything. It's a
Right.
little bit
Right.
more
It's a little
involved.
more complicated, or like
Yeah,
not
not
complicated, but
complicated, but
the
it's a conversation.
yes, exactly. It's more detailed and
Yeah,
defined
for
to
each person.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so going to our checklist. So I'm a new mom and I want to start investing in real estate. And okay, maybe wholesaling is the route for me because I don't have a lot of cash on hand and I don't really want to do a flip because I don't have that time because I have two toddlers. All right, cool. So I'm going to start building my list. I'm just going to start building my buyer's list and I'm going to start driving for dollars. Let's walk through kind of how
Okay, so
we're going to
let's
go
do
about
this.
this.
So it's actually two different, kind of three. Let's look at it as like a three-prong process.
Yep.
Okay, number one, you need to know the market that you
Hmm.
want to buy in,
Yep.
right? So you're going to pick two zip codes, and then you can go to Zillow. If you don't have a realtor friend that's going to do this for you, you can go to realtor.com or Zillow,
Hmm.
and you can just type in those zip codes, and you can just start looking at sales numbers. That's really what you want to know, not what's for sale, what the properties are selling for, the
Yeah, yeah.
cash price. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you want to start building a buyer's list. So you need to learn how to scrape data
Hmm.
for buyers on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, websites. You can do it off of websites and things like that. So that's number three. Um, or number two. And number three, you should need to start finding sellers. So we've got market, learn your market,
Hmm.
get your buyers, and now
Hmm.
you got to find some sellers. So
Yes.
sellers you can find from you can buy a list, you can drive for dollars, you can do referrals. Um, those are the three areas that you need to focus on.
Hmm.
Now, how do you keep all that organized? Well, you need to get the ultimate real estate collection. It's free because
Yeah.
we have scripts in there. We
Yeah.
have a journal. So then you write down your activities. So let's say one day you're going to just focus on, once a week is all you have to do for the market trends,
Hmm.
right? So pick those two zip codes and every week go into realtor.com, Zillow. If you're a realtor, you can run these reports. Number two, take one afternoon. Like I would say, okay, let's just break it down in 30-minute increments. So let's take 2 days a week and you're going to scrape for your buyers,
Hmm.
right? You're going to, and just pick one platform, like maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays. You're going to pick 30 minutes. And one day you'll do Instagram, one day you'll do Facebook,
Right.
and then the next week. So do that. And then, so how many days do I have? Like once a week. So now we got 3 days,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Okay. And then on the other 2 days is where you're going to start working, 2 to 3 days a week. You're going to start working on your sellers. So you're going to pick one day,
Hmm.
just pick one day and dedicate an hour to driving a neighborhood
Yep.
in your zip codes,
Yep.
right?
Grab the
Number
kids,
two,
grab the
you can
hubby.
go, okay, this is very old school, but there are Craigslist. Now, you got to be careful because there's a lot of scammers,
Yeah.
but people, you could start looking at for sale by owner.
I'm curious if Facebook Marketplace now has that too. Do you know?
Yeah, they have
I mean, again, caution.
caution,
This is not
but
advising to go on there,
but
but
it's just a way, and it also will help you learn that market. But
yeah.
there are Facebook groups that are they're called FSBO, FSBO, for sale by owner, and that's a place to start too. Now
Hmm.
I know for a fact Craigslist is filled with wholesalers trying to sell you a property, so
Yeah.
just be careful, buyer
Yes.
beware. Um, but just start looking at, neighborhoods. And then, like you were saying, you can use Google Maps to look for distressed properties, look at
Hmm.
people's backyard, that kind of thing. And then start telling everybody from the grocery store to the cleaners to the daycare to the church, wherever that, you're looking. You don't have to say that you're wholesale, just say, hey, I'm looking for an investment property because you know what? Somebody could tell you, which is sort of what happened to you. Somebody told us about a property. We went and talked to the seller and then we wholesaled it,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
So we didn't really do any marketing. It was really,
Yeah.
now I have done wholesale deals where they have been off of my marketing from my
Hmm.
list.
Hmm.
And generally, and this is what I teach too, generally I'll wholesale a property because it's not in an area that I want to invest in. Um, two, it's not going to make a good long-term rental or a short-term rental,
Yeah.
or I can make more money flipping it.
Yep. Yeah.
You have to weigh those things,
Yes.
right? But that would be my advice is just,
Hmm.
and then every week track your progress. Like,
Hmm.
are you getting to that 100 buyers? Like maybe you need a month.
Hmm.
But if you do 2 days a week, 30 minutes, you should have no problem getting 100 buyers in 2 weeks.
Hmm. Yeah. So hopefully that is helpful and like having those steps of, because I know for me, having those steps kind of written out of like how to go about maybe your first investment deal, or maybe this is something you're interested in wholesaling. Like always, if you have more questions, like please feel free to reach out. But I just want to say, and this will probably people maybe comment or say something that this is biased, but whatever. But I was, when I talk about moms of like the first time investors and like not really knowing anything, and like even though I had this has been my life and like I grew up around it, like for me to be, hey, I want to be investing in real estate now, that was extremely nerve-wracking for me. And like to take that leap, like yes, of course my mom was helping me out, and like someone that's a like I know we joke about this all the time, but I think you're a guru at real estate. And like obviously you've like taught at major conferences and you teach at, multiple like CCAR and Metro. And we're being asked to talk at the diversity event next week. And so anyways, so it'll probably come off cross bias, take it what you want, but I'm thankful that I had someone to guide me through this process, because I don't think that I could do it by myself. One, I do not, unfortunately, the career that I was in the time in my life, I did not have the best confidence. And so to have that ability to talk to people and have that negotiating skill, and like I didn't have that. So it was nice to have someone help me through that process. And, like we said, we do have scripts out there. So go to our website. It's a free resource because that is so important to have. Because again, we're at home talking to toddlers all day.
Right.
And now you expect me to go talk to
Well,
a
and can I just say this too on the website? Whoops, we have because I said this at a networking event the other day, being a mother daughter. So I probably look at things like a little too in depth, like,
Yeah.
because I got to remember, okay, everybody's new. And so our Millionaire Mama Masterclass, so if you've taken it, I had to redo it because Kelsey said, Mom, too boring, too long.
Yeah.
So I did redo it. It's only like 13 or 14 minutes now, and it really gets to just the meat of what we do.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find it so much more beneficial than the 45-minute
Yeah.
long drawn out. And there's no pitch at the end, except if you want to get our Ultimate Real Estate collection.
Mhm.
But yeah, we have a lot of free resources out there. So
But yeah, like I was just saying that, like I'm just glad that I had that there. And like yeah, we have, so now because of my journey and whatnot and going into real estate investing, we have all of these resources. So yeah, reach out if you have any questions, but also go to our website. We have our master class. That's again 13-14 minutes. You're welcome.
and
um
that's what Kelsey brings to the
yeah,
table. So
so like I bring the new like age mom. I'm like, hey, we don't have time for this. I got a toddler that's, being real demanding. No, but we have resources. So we have resources. We have the Ultimate Real Estate Collection. We have the script. We have so much out there. And again, we are a resource. So if you're thinking about investing in real estate and starting that journey, it doesn't hurt to call. We are happy to talk and whatnot. So on that note, Mom, do you have anything else
no,
to
I just
say?
think again, like you don't have to have, I've said this before, you don't have to have your real estate license. You don't have to have tons of cash. You don't, I mean, there is a way for everyone to
Mhm.
get into real estate
Yep.
investing that really is dedicated to it in terms of like, you're going to be consistent and you're going to dedicate some time. You don't have to dedicate as much time. I mean, I live it, breathe it all the time. But if you have limited time, limited resources, but you want to build something more for your family, you just have to reach out and let's talk about how that can happen.
So it's so funny. I had to tell the story really quick. So we have
Okay.
a mom in our community that we had a call with like literally last week, and she was like, we were telling her this, like, cause that's what I thought too. You had to have $20,000 in cash. Here you go. Let's start investing. And when we started really like she was like, no, I always just thought that was like something you guys said. Like, you don't have to have a lot of cash. And we're like, no, like, you legit don't. And her face and like just her reaction and like the genuine like sense of relief that she felt.
Mhm.
And because now she can start this journey, because you do not have to have a lot of cash. And she always thought she did. So I just love that conversation that we had with her last week. And I thought that was really
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
Anyways, but if you are not following us on all the socials, please do. Please subscribe. We love the feedback, and again, anything helps. I think I saw a post the other day that was like, it doesn't, if you can't help a small business, or if you can't think of a way to help a small business, one of the best ways you can is just liking their stuff on social media. So that's the big, and
Or
it's for
leaving a
free.
Google review. You
Or
can
a
go.
Google review, anything like that. So we'll take it, whatever you got.
Yep. So
But anyways, Mom, thanks so much for all the
thank you,
information. And if
Kelsey.
you
I
think of
appreciate it.
anything
Yep.
else,
Nope. Just love you, girl.
love you.
All right. See
Bye.
y'all later.
Bye.